7. What profession was once highly respected but is now a complete joke? Engineering drafter. The trade used to be filled with highly skilled tradesmen who were skilled in both mathematical and artistic talent. Now a lot of the industry is filled with ITT grads who only know how to click a button. The trade itself is dying as engineers are being forced to do more of their own computer drafting. I am an engineering technologist, and from where I sit, engineers are mostly managers now. While the technologists have widely taken over a good portion of what people typically think engineers do, might just be the trend where I work though. I'd say engineering drafters have just been replaced by technologists as a job title. If aliens came along and researched engineering on Earth since the Industrial Revolution, they would wonder what the hell happened in the 1980s and 1990s that devastated the quality of engineering design. That's about when CAD started taking over and engineers began doing their own drafting. The designs may be good, but the ability to document and communicate those designs has been in sharp decline as can operate a PC. CAD program became synonymous with is a capable grocery store clerk. In the old days it was a respectable position to hold. Nowadays it's viewed as a kid job, minimum wage grunt job. I worked in 3 grocery stores. Some of the management positions or heads can be respected, but all of the stockers or cashiers are treated like absolute garbage by people. There's only so many times you can scream, complain, argue before you just say, dude, I just work here. What the fuck? But no, I have to apologize and make them feel better. No wonder the average stocker or cashier only lasted a few months. Unless you're in small towns. You yell at a small town cashier and she's there for the next 20 years and hates you. They used to wear dress suits basically, without the jackets. It was literally a white-collar job, so it came with the respect given to them. Up until recently, now those guys are the MVPs of 2020. Granville. I say, Granville. Got a feeling that may change soon, at least temporarily. Auto mechanic. Back before information was everywhere. Before big chains swooped in. Before the bad actors showed up. It was a decent job. You'd make decent money. Know your customers. Customers respected you. They'd come to you with a problem. You'd fix it up, and you're their best friend. Now, I think everyone has some paranoia. There have been enough scams through low-cost oil change places, enough inappropriate upsells, and too much shoddy workmanship by folks who are either rushing through jobs or just outright don't know what they're doing. Break something in, cover it up, etc., etc. And, unfortunately, the pay scale rewards this sort of half-assed do-it-quick behavior. Most auto mechanics are on the flat rate system, which in a nutshell, means that you're paid a predetermined labor charge regardless of the circumstances or how long it takes near vehicle. 2 hours labor, nothing's rusted or seized, done it a couple times, and perhaps have invested in better tools to go fast. You might be able to hammer through that job in an hour and 15, only to have the customer, instead of being thankful you were able to get their vehicle done ahead of schedule, start whining and moaning that you're ripping them off, paying no mind to the $500 in tools you got just bought so you can do that insert common job here faster. On the other hand, you might have something that's rust damaged, where everything either breaks on removal, or requires tons of time finessing, and 5 hours later, the customer is upset, because it's taking too long while you're covered in burns and have rust in your eyes, oil in your hair, cuts down your arms from trying to meet their needs. 5 hours, for 2 hours of pay. It's lose-lose here, and heaven forbid you get the whole thing done only to have the parts store send over a bad part that fails the next day. Quality control anymore is terrible. You'll work your body to its limit doing everything right, only to have something fail on account of the factory that made it, just to have the customer start accusing you of scams because their car broke again for the same thing. So then you have to spend another couple hours doing it again. All for your 2 hours of pay. Oh, and the modularity of vehicles anymore. Small parts are coupled together in larger modules, with oftentimes no options to replace said smaller parts. Yes, Tim. The window switch is $385. Sorry, Tim. I don't set the prices. No, Tim. I can't just take it apart. The things are high frequency, welded together at the factory. I'm sorry, Tim. There's really nothing I can do here. TL. Dr. Whole industry's gone downhill. From pay scale, to who's hired, to parts used, to media, blasting and paranoia. You just can't win. I think part of it is that it's become very difficult for someone who is not a professional or at least own professional level tools to diagnose their own car issues or do any of their own work. Many of the systems in modern cars are basically a black box to the average person. So this creates a natural distrust given the asymmetric information between customer and mechanic. That plus that fact that most people no longer have a regular mechanic with whom they have an established relationship. New cars don't need service very often. And if you are only taking your car in every couple years, you may never deal with the same person twice. Then when something does go wrong, you are dealing with a stranger and have little or no way to verify what he is telling you about the necessary repairs and costs. This is true. My boyfriend left auto because of the flat rate nightmare. He works heavy equipment now, which is a whole different thing thanks to a lack of private customers. He also is union and doesn't work for flat rate. Teaching. My migrant parents still think it is still a respected career, but teachers are treated horribly. Not only by students, have so much responsibility and work to do, and don't get paid nearly enough for any of it. I feel like where I live they're still respected, but definitely don't get paid enough. They also deal with terrible parents and children too much as well. My whole family rallied around talking my brother out of becoming a teacher. I feel like the same thing happens with cops and teachers, where there are fantastic people involved in a profession with some less fantastic people, and they all sort of get lumped together. The good teachers support and protect the bad via their union. Bad teachers are rarely dealt with, and end up getting shuffled around by the system in a way that enables them to keep being a failure of a teacher. But our education system is in catastrophe from COVID and was failing the poor long before that. Respecting the good teachers and recognizing the education system's role in perpetuating social problems are both important. With teachers, my parents and people around me respect them immensely and even praise the ones who join it, and still would treat it as a joke if I put out my intentions of teach. How is that not the first comment? When's the last time you met a blacksmith? Dark Souls probably. I know one. It is a very respected position. He can make armor, swords, and fix parts stuff none else can do. A lot of blacksmiths do farrier work as well nowadays. A lot more prestige and money being a CLA. It's a rare but very respectable profession, though. Ren fairs attract a bunch of them. I used to live next door to a farrier, if that counts. I actually have a friend who is a blacksmith. Blacksmiths make real bank now because it's been turned into a boutique industry. I bet you wouldn't dare tell a blacksmith his profession is a joke. Who do you think are the ancestors to the world's strongest man competitors? Blacksmiths matter. Unforged and fire. It's not as rare as you think, especially in rural areas where it is still useful. It's also a fun hobby. There is actually a guild for American blacksmiths. Jesters. Now they're all clowns. Today's jesters are all in Hollywood, just there for your entertainment. And when they start piping up about politics, remember their skill is pretending. Being a philosopher. I'd say they were always pretty disrespected. Many of the most quoted philosophers either were treated like mooches by their patrons, or lived shitty, short lives constantly in fear of being put on trial by whatever authority might take exception to their work. Philosophers then, cogito ergo sum. Philosophers in my country, scoring a goal in football is an enactment of rape. Stand-up comedians are the modern-day philosophers. Real estate agent. Before the internet, an agent would have to inform you of houses for sale, etc. Now they basically get paid to sign some documents. I live in Vancouver, and over the last several years I've seen many situations where a buyer goes out, does their own house hunting, and then the agent comes in to arrange the paperwork and collects $20,000 for doing a couple hours of work. Negotiating is still a very good skill to have in Vancouver real estate. Ever made $100,000 on a phone call insisting you won't go any lower? Felt like I paid someone an awful lot to read Zillow search results to me. Lawyer used to be really respectable. Now, with a glut of law schools providing an oversupply of lawyers and shows like Better Call Saul depicting the less prestigious form of lawyer, the profession has taken a big hit. Lawyers were ruined because of lawyers. LOCE O'Reilly. Dude, lawyers were hated since Shakespeare. First kill all the lawyers. Even as far back as Ethics of the Fathers. Don't make yourself like those who argue cases before the judges. You really about to bring Saul Goodman into this? Ah, you know what? Never mind, it's all good. NAR10E. Yeah, Saul Goodman was the final straw. There was a time when ambulance chasing lawyers would never dream to advertise, "I will get money for you." Now it's so mainstream. Of course, here was a discussing on specialty of law. I think it really depends on what area of law you're talking about. The vast majority of the public thinks of the stereotypical pie attorney in the sleazy bag office. Law enforcement seem on par with the current trend. Homoia alsa. They were frontline heroes at the beginning of the epidemic. Yes, they are. Oh, absolutely. Don't worry though. There's always security positions which are boring, but they help a lot to train yourself. Man, I really was thinking of being a cop when I was a kid, but now I kinda wish I was just a human resource counselor to speak and talk to coworkers about their rights. Mapmaker. Cartographers used to get all the pussy. Now they've been replaced by cars and drones. Nerds. Down with Mercator. Up with Gall Peters. Map-making in the traditional sense? Maybe, but not in the modern sense. The U.S. government alone has a huge number of geodesists, geographers, hydrographers, GIS techs, and a host of other professions maintaining our GPS satellites. A network of public imagery satellites, Landsat, MODIS, Sentinel satellite, and weather imagery satellites. We've got boots on the ground, too. Ground truthing, using drones, ships. It's especially hard to map underwater with satellites, and ports, rivers, channels need to be accurately mapped. And the European Union, China, Russia, India, and any other aspiring nation needs geographic information to make intelligent, rapid decision. This also extends into the private sector. There are private satellite constellations that supplement government ones. GIS technicians are making maps of everything, where cities, construction sites, what areas are affected after a hurricane, where will the airborne pollution from that factory outside of town go, where were all those BLM protests actually occurring? Map making is a joke now? No, we're in a damn golden age of map making. You can find a map of almost anything. And why? Because we've got a huge and rapidly growing number of professionals that are allowing us to see the world like we've never seen it before. Barbering used to be shamans and surgeons in their respective societies. Now I hear, "Oh, you just cut hair," and "Oh, my friend cut hair," until they got a real job from people driving beat-up cars. While I drive a 2016 Ford Edge, just seems silly to call my job fake when ya don't even have stable work and still have to ask your boss to take a piss. People who say that are pricks. There's a big difference between a good barber and a crap barber, even for someone like me who just has a graded cut and it's worth paying for. Respecting what's required. 2016 Ford Edge. Weird flex. Cutting my dad's hair during lockdown has given me a whole new level of respect for the skill of Layla. I think it's definitely making a comeback in a lot of urban areas. Sure, it's not quite the shamans and surgeons that it used to be, but barbering has taken off in the past decade or so as more men get back to appreciating their looks. There's a lot more high-end barber shops, places that are offering a complete package kind of experience. Some even working in a full bar so you can have a cocktail while you wait. Compared to 15 plus years ago when it was just they cut hair, I think barbers are gaining a lot more respect. Who TF says that barbering and related careers are legit? Agreed with your point. I think this just depends on the community. Black barbershops are like community center therapist. I got my first haircut today in 4 months as a woman with a pixie, and my hairstylist is my favorite person today. I finally feel like I look like me again. I got dressed up because I finally feel good about myself again. Hair is a major part of someone's outward identity. Times have been shit for barbers and stylists lately. Hope you are hanging in there. Turkish barbers in the UK are highly respected for their quality workmanship. Earl Sweet 5 points 4 hours ago, edited 3 hours ago. Surgeons used to be a disrespected profession, which is why barbers did it. Doctors looked DOWB on them because in their view it didn't require education, and the surgeon didn't figure out what was wrong and just followed doctor's orders. I find barbers mesmerizing to watch. They really are highly skilled professionals. Why should it be any more respected than other service jobs? Yeah, it takes skill, but it also takes zero mental energy. Maybe I just don't know enough about cutting hair. News reporter. IDK what you're talking about. I only get the most professional, respectable impression when I read about how this celebrity got slammed on social media for punching a disabled child in the face, only to click the article and read about how a few random people upvoted a meme when a celebrity doing a Make-A-Wish accidentally bumped into the child and promptly apologized with no further issue, and really can't begin to express the kind of top talent it takes to find a viral video and make an article that narrates everything that happens in the video, without even trying to pretend you did any further research than just watching the video. Actually it is, and that's sad news. They are major key roles of our country, but no one damn cares. Yes, this profession is in the hit list nowadays. Taylor. I respect the reporters for NPR and PBS NewsHour. David Muir from ABC seems respectable. Anderson Cooper I think is respected, but I'm not sure. YTF is being a warrior solely devoted to reclaiming the holy city for Christendom, no longer widely respected and sustainable occupation. No idea, bro. It was 1527, and you types were the ones sacking the holy city. You tell me. Journalism. 100%. Nighttime radio DJ. That medium is barely relevant anymore. If you're not on the air during morning or afternoon drive, you're just filler. Daytime radio is still a thing. A lot of businesses here still have a radio playing during work hours. Mostly manufacturing businesses, but some offices too. Nighttime is a bit dead, yes. Rest in peace, Art Bell. Agreed. Banking. My great-grandfather was a bank manager for the State Rural Bank. Back then, Ina, country town, the banker was a trusted friend and advisor within the community. My great-grandfather used that power to help many. He helped many non-English speaking migrants to set up bank accounts and save, and eventually to buy homes. There are many Italian and Greek descendant people in town here whose families are wealthy. Few of them realize that all started with the advice and help my great-grandfather gave their grandparents a long time ago. He was also the first rural bank manager to hire an indigenous person as a bank clerk. Head office told him to fire the guy. He told head office he wouldn't. Head office threatened to fire him and the clerk. Word got out and within a week head office was flooded with letters, calls and telegrams from supportive community members saying, "Leave our bank manager alone. We support him." That's amazing. Make a movie out of this, please. POTUS. Melly agreed, and deservedly so. Politician, journalists, some law enforcement. The BBC News website was legit news 10 years ago but is now mainly clickbait with a light dusting of news. Telephone sanitizer. The Golgafrinchans knew how to deal with telephone sanitizers. They all say that till there's a particularly virulent disease spread by a dirty telephone operator. For those of you who are too young to know, before my time there was a person who actually physically pulled an audio jack and moved it to the appropriate wire to connect your phone call. And you could dial 0 to speak with them if you didn't know the number for whoever you were calling. Yep, and it was pretty reasonably paid too. Catholic clergy. OMG, yes. So true, especially in Australia. Television news anchor. Soothsayer. IKR. Now people just see their zodiac online. Nobody wants to hear proheses anymore. Slave catcher. Gotta catch 'em all. Statue makers. Hate to say it, but Catholic priest, you can barely mention it without the pedophilia joke seeping into the conversation somewhere. It is kind of a shame. Really. Not for the priests but for the various other valid criticisms you could levy against the church and the priesthood. Systematically abusing children gets all the attention. Blue-collar jobs, or anything that needs manual labor, now they're just seen as jobs for people who didn't finish high school or couldn't graduate, get into college. And it sucks. YGAOTLA all. Can't wait for the Salt Hall on Reddit when he gets re-elected. Being in the politics. I'm too lit to politic. No, I don't think it's a complete joke. For I am an artist myself. But around 1600 to 1800 artists were extremely respected and constantly in high demand by kings and emperors for their talent and knowledge on human anatomy, perspective, aesthetics, etc. Nowadays many people see us as unsuccessful and lazy. Which there are people like that indeed. But it became a stereotype of being an artist in a good chunk of the world. I think there's some sample bias there because the only ones we remember were the successful and famous ones. Journalist, doctor. They used to be respected and highly paid. Now they are mocked, told the diagnoses by the patients. I have cancer. I googled the symptoms myself, and are under constant threat of lawsuits. And above all that, they have to deal with anti-vaxxers. God bless doctors. Journalism. Being a clown. Poor people used to do it for travel and money from it. But now if you're a clown, you'll be made fun of. 1 GSC, Oratory. Teaching. Hopefully the USA can pull a Finland and turn it back to a respectful profession. Law enforcement. Granted, most people that work there still deserve respect, but as you know, a few bad apples can ruin a whole batch. I've actually wanted to be a detective as my career so I could help people and not let the criminals get away doing terrible things. It's probably not respected anymore, but I still want to help society. Few bad apples can ruin a whole batch. United Airlines can't say most of our pilots can land planes. We just have a few bad apples. Chris Rock. Some professions don't tolerate bad apples because they are too costly. What we need to see is the police reliably and transparently rejecting bad cop behavior and bad cops. When you protect your bad coworkers, you are all bad. Astrologist. It's been a long time since they've been important, but once they were highly respected. A physician without a knowledge of astrology has no right to call himself a physician. Hypocrites. Groom of the king's stool. Banking. People only see them as crooks now. Blockbuster employees. Journalism. Calligraphers and those working in manual printing. Using actual printing presses. Because. ONTAV call Habis IOLE 1 EMOE, CE 10 to 1. Uman Elikra. Uvo. Goa Lelab. Mods. LLEELA RCO. TD. Teaching. Back then it was a noble profession where adults molded the young minds of the next generation. Now it's turned into simple daycare where teachers have to abide by the new number one rule of the classroom: the parent is always right even when they are very, very wrong. Alchemist, you just get weird looks now. Pressed, at least in my country. IDK. Writers. Not true. Writing for TV shows, movies, and books is still a respectable gig and only the good ones get all the good work. The Pope. Being the Pope ain't what it used to be, but it's still kind of a big deal. Pokemon trainer. Court magician. Male pigeon. Lawyers. Team Aeka. Circus artists and performers. Seriously. I know clowns were mentioned, but people would flock from all over the country for a one-night-only show 100 plus years ago. Today nobody really sees clowning, knife throwing, riding, toy spinning or juggling as a career. Dressmaker, priest, reporters and readers. This job now requires the experience of a reality TV star. Debunking these people has created another media industry itself. There was presence of bias, but now they openly Lele WM Los NACOS. Journalist. Philosophy. Philosopher. It's on the flip side of this question. Acting. Before motion pictures, acting troupes were really looked down on. Like gypsies. Sure, they come to your village or town and entertain you for a few hours. But watch out. If you turn your back, they would be stealing your kids right from under your noses. Witch doctor. EV AAA. We went from, whoa, this painting is so amazing, to, why you draw me for free. University professor or administrator. Weather person. Like I don't need you anymore. I am my own weatherman. A little sunshine today in Cupertino, with a sunny outlook for the week. Street lamp lighter. Teachers. Journalism. Seems more like activism these days. Snake oil salesman. Phrenologist. Kayla S. WKUK 78 5 degrees. A5. Plague doctor, although it's making a comeback. I mean, if you go back far enough, slave plantation owners must have been respected. Comedian. Clown. They were hired to the king's palace and had to be best of bests. In addition, they were only ones with could joke about king. It was really high position. Journalism. I have a degree that I probably won't use because the field today completely lacks objectivity, which is what the profession is supposed to stand on. 24-hour news networks and Twitter were originally to blame, but it was dead when a certain president popularized the term fake news. I graduated with a degree in journalism in 2012. It was one of my childhood dreams to be a reporter. The low pay, combined with all of the sensationalism, really disingenuated me to the field. Started a career in stage lighting. I absolutely love working in the event industry. Or did. Until COVID. Now I'm doing it inside IT for $20,000 less a year than I made as a freelance tech. Life. Eva NT Coeb GTL Pele Colori. LNTALULEES. Bro, that shit was dead long before Trump. Once clickbait starting becoming the norm is when it died. It's not about reporting facts and news anymore, it's all about that as revenue. I won't be shocked when bots write every article in disjointed English because they want more clicks. The term fake news was originally applied by news networks to reporting that they considered misinformed or inaccurate. There were calls to censor such stories on social media to stop the spread of fake news. All Trump did was turn it back around on them. You can use your journalism degree for all sorts of writing, communications positions. It's not limited to working at newspapers or TV stations. I have a journalism degree and have worked at newspapers, magazines and nonprofit associations. Now I'm a freelance writer and editor with a variety of print and web publication clients. Ornate AELIIDOE. I'm sure it's a skilled and tough job, but all I see is the children in Mary Poppins. Ooh, they were often children, fit in the chimneys better. CD makers, water carrier, politician. Everyone talks shit about teachers, but it should be more respected because who else would teach us how to read and write in elementary? Those ages are so crucial for learning literacy, those skills. Team Elon E. IADAG. Flight attendant. I'm going to say doctor, but I mean it in a relative way. I don't think doctors are a joke, and I don't need IMA or it. But the amount of respect that doctors used to get is so much higher than the amount of respect they get now. Everyone second guesses them, assumes the worst, and relies on Dr. Google for their answers. I mean, there are law firms that advertise their services specifically for medical lawsuits. I can't understand why anyone would become a doctor nowadays. Construction workers. They literally built the world, but now due to cheap labor, shit work conditions and lax safety rules, it's become a job for dropouts, dopeheads and people who have no idea what they're doing. I worked doing construction for years, and you won't believe how crappy your homes and businesses are put together. Ask that guy that can barely speak the native language what the air gap is supposed to be between the interior wall and exterior. Be prepared for it. Me don't know, but hey, they can read that level bubble though. That's all they care about. Literally had jobs postponed for 2 weeks or more due to this. Architects have to see if it's okay or not, and just everything gets thrown off. I seriously had a building start with a 1-inch gap on one end, and end up with a 5-inch gap at the other, which when doing something that needs to be as precise as windows turns into a nightmare. Materials are made cheaper and cheaper. Fabrication equipment is not purchased, so everything is cut and drilled by hand, which adds a lot for human error. Everything just becomes a nightmare due to cheap work conditions. You end up being the blame for something being a hair off, but you're only human. Perhaps if the owners sprang for the money for the correct fabrication equipment, things wouldn't be that way. I look at the old pictures of American steelworkers and people from back in the day that took pride in their work and think that's how it should be. I look at today's construction people with their strung-out eyes, erratic behavior, language gaps that cause major errors and unsafe work conditions. It makes me think, I'm so glad I don't do that garbage anymore. Also, the pay has gone down. Consider as well, it's barely enough for one person to get by unless you own your own business, which if you're like me wouldn't be able to compete with the bigger businesses. Cleaner. My mom works as one, and I used to work with her. Ordinary cleaners get all the shit thrown at them. This is usually caused because the position is given to inexperienced people who are capable of only cleaning their own house, not maggots from showers and dried up diarrhea from under the toilet seat. There are only a couple of cleaning companies in my city, and my mom is one of the high-tier ones, while the two competing companies in this city hire and train literally anyone to a point of being an above-average cleaner. My mom handpicks who gets to work for her, who has the talent, as she says, and personally trains all of her employees. She is one of the cleaners for rich people. She cleans all of those expensive furniture stores. You know the drill.